And they need to get on board, and they need to be a leader on this, and they are not. We passed, in Alachua County, in Gainesville, we passed an ordinance back in August banning single-use plastics. There's a state law, that's the other thing, got to go to Tallahassee and get them rescinded. There's a state law that prevents local communities from banning single-use plastic. And so Publix, but our county commissioners ignored that law, so we're going to ban them anyway. Publix steps in and he says, we're going to take you to court. I have not shopped at Publix since August. So boycott them, get to Lakeland, say, look, be a responsible citizen of the state. You've made a damn lot of money off of us, and it's time that you return something. And you could become a model. Look, Aldi doesn't use any bags. Lucky's uses only paper. There are a number of groceries, they do fine. I was a bag boy at Publix, my first job. We didn't have plastic. We didn't even know what plastic bags were. And everything worked. The world didn't stop.
So, another question?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, obviously I was on the fan.
The question I have is everybody that lives here, whether there's development, whether they live in a coastal, they probably have some kind of a retention pond or something like that. And every new development, of course, it's anywhere near the water, it goes into a stormwater drain. The stormwater drain goes into the bay. I wonder if the county just has quantified this. And does the stormwater, my assumption is the stormwater, even because they're cleaning out the stormwater right now because of flooding, which is another big problem, because they put, I know the newest development knocked by the bay, I was talking to the guy, he put, first batch of dirt on the land was 900 truckloads to raise it up above the water. Now we're talking hurricane, which is another even bigger event. But are we quantifying the stormwater somewhere? Because it's obvious when you have runoff from a parking lot or anything, if you can just run it into a pond and let the sediments settle out, you dump a lot less into the stream. Because it's all eventually going to go into some creek somewhere or into the soil and permeate out. So is that being quantified? Is anybody addressing that?
Yeah, those numbers are out there.
What's the question?
I don't know what they are. And so what, again, a question about how much stormwater is running to the bays? Where is it coming from? It's a major contributor to the harmful algae blooms. What happened those 2 summers ago? Heavy rains, right? Record rainfalls. Those retention ponds were overflowing. Again, I'm not telling you guys anything you didn't. So no, the septic tanks were below groundwater level, and all of that is ultimately running into the bay. What's running into those retention ponds? It's our fertilizer. And it's our pesticides, and that's why we have to stop. Nearly 50% of our potable water in Florida goes down on lawns. So we can have green grass that shouldn't be growing on sand. We've got to take responsibility ourselves as well and stop with these green lawns.
Before the next, thank you. For the next question, I just want to let you know we're going to close off the silent auction in 5 minutes, and so if you want to bid something up, go ahead and feel free to walk up there while you listen to questions and answers. Sue, I think you had a question in the back.
And I will take an unsilent bid of $15 for my last book here. All right.
But they don't offer restaurants, you can say maybe use
Oh, sure.
straws instead of plastic straws.
Yep.
You make your voice known instead of trying to ban it, and then they won't even know.
I think that's very wise advice too. So when you go to a grocery store, request paper, and of course that's going to throw the Publix grocery store into a tizzy, because they're going to say, "Where's our paper bags? Where's our paper bag?" And that's another way to do it. I happen to, because I'm so mad at Publix, I've just chosen to boycott them. But you can go, yes. So force them. Say, look, I don't want plastic, and that's what I do in stores where, like if I go to Target or somewhere, and I just tell them outright. I say I don't use plastic, but I mean we all have to do it. And
Bring your own bag.
what's that?
Well, yeah, bring your own bags is the other
Well,
solution.
bring your own bag, yeah, bring your own bag too, but I really think we need to let publics know that we want them to lead this.
Yeah, I wrote a letter
Change.
to tell them to use every cashier should ask before they dump your groceries.
I know, they do this, they do
I
this with
say,
hand.
and- No, yeah, and I say,
Reflex.
please, and I've written letters, state paper or plastic. You can say plastic or paper, but I prefer you to say paper or plastic.
All right, next question. Andy?
No question, just to
Only questions now.
answer an earlier question. Lake Okeechobee has been studied extensively, and they know that we're talking about how many what percentage of fertilizers are from agriculture. And perhaps we can draw from this an inference. 72% of the nutrients that wind up in Lake O come down the Kissimmee River Valley from agriculture.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Andy made a comment that 72% of the pollution, the nutrients coming into Lake Okeechobee comes through the Kissimmee River, which is up really in the middle part of our state.
From agriculture.
From agriculture.
So here's how I refer to what comes down Lake Okeechobee and St. Lucie. Cow tide. So don't call it red tide, call it cow tide.
A lot of truth to that. Another question in the back there? Anybody? Any more questions? All right.
Thank you.
If not, we're going to give a hand for Jack. Thank you very much. And if you really haven't read this book and don't have a copy, either share a book, and I know this is the last book that you have a customer right there, but it's really worth the read. But at this time, I'd like to introduce our Suncoast Waterkeeper Board, which I believe is important for us to let you know who the workers are behind Suncoast Waterkeeper. We have Tom Walker, who is getting ready to stand up. Thank you, Tom. We have Allison, who's over here helping sell some raffle tickets. If you want some more raffle tickets, we'll do that in about 20 or 30 minutes here. And then we have Marilyn Parker, who you met, but she's also our secretary. I mean, treasurer. Looking at her, I know she's the treasurer, and she does a great job at it. We have Justin Bloom. Justin actually founded Suncoast Waterkeeper, and we just appreciate the fact that he was interested enough in starting an organization like this, and he'll give you an update on some of the things that we've been doing. Rusty Russell, you heard of? He's not Rusty Russell. Rusty Chinnis. Getting the last names mixed up with that. Rusty Chinnis, you heard of? And Sandy Ripberger, Sandy. And Sandy is our secretary, and I'm currently serving as the chair. So at this time, I'd like to have Justin come up and just share some words on what we've been doing. It ties into Jack's talk about the sewage. We have a campaign, one called Sick of Sewage, which Justin has been leading up, as well as now we've embarked on going after stormwater polluters that are industrial polluters. Justin?
Thanks, Joe, and thank you all again for attending our regular Brunch for the Bay. I founded Suncoast Waterkeeper in 2012 after having worked with Waterkeeper Alliance for a number of years in different positions as working for the Hudson Riverkeeper, which is the original Waterkeeper, and also working for Waterkeeper Alliance, which is kind of the umbrella that supports and helps to set up waterkeepers around the world. So now there are 360 waterkeepers around the world. The majority of the waterkeepers are in the United States, and we're seeing a lot of growth in Florida. Now I believe we have 13 or 14 waterkeepers in the state of Florida, and we're seeing a lot of rapid growth. The vision really is to adopt a waterway. The Hudson Riverkeeper, the original Riverkeeper, kind of grew out of some of the things that Jack was talking about. The birth of the modern environmental movement as we know it came around the time of the Clean Water Act. And so the Hudson Riverkeeper was started out as a bunch of commercial fishermen that honestly, they couldn't put food on the table, they couldn't catch enough fish to bring to market on the Hudson River. There was so much industrial pollution They knew what color pickup truck they were painting in Terrytown at the General Motors plant by the color of the fish that they were taking with their nets. And they were at the point of they were going to soak a mattress full of kerosene and stick it up the pipe and try to blow it up. And they started talking to some environmental lawyers and some other folks, some journalists, and started using other tools. And the utilization of those tools is key, and has been, to what we do as water keepers. It's whatever tools we have in the toolbox. I'm an environmental lawyer. A number of the water keepers and the Hudson River Keeper was really legal based, and so we enforce laws. We use the Clean Water Act, which is an incredible statute, along with some of the other federal laws, the National Environmental Protection Act, that enable citizens groups and citizens to step into the role of a regulatory agency or an enforcement agency if they're not doing their job. And that's key to what we do as water keepers. But other water keepers around the state aren't necessarily, don't have legal skills or board members that are lawyers. They're scientists, they're educators. It's whatever tools you have in your toolbox to protect your waterway. The Suncoast is kind of a commercial name. It's really protecting coastal waterways in Manatee and Sarasota counties. To the south, we have the Calusa Waterkeeper, which got set up after we initiated our work. To the north, we have the Tampa Bay Waterkeeper. Just an update on that. Our Tampa Bay Waterkeeper is only a couple years old and has gone through a difficult growth and transition. Currently, our Suncoast Waterkeeper Board has kind of taken over as a caretaker board with the hopes that we and our supporters in the room and others can help to strengthen that organization, because there's so much work to be done in Tampa Bay. It's an area that we're still active. I'll talk about a few of our initiatives, but I want to just give a little bit of an update and to let some of the folks that aren't familiar with Waterkeeper, who we are, what we do, where we come from. We're a small nonprofit. We have Andy Mele, who has been working with me in the trenches for many, many years, is our executive director, and our only staff member who works for an incredibly unfairly low salary. So we rely on contributions, on donations. We like to think of ourselves as grassroots. We have a very broad membership of many people, a lot of supporters, and most of the money that we earn, that we bring in, comes from small contributions with some generous donors as well, some of whom are in the room. And we'd like to thank all of you for your support. This is a fundraiser. It's a friend meter and a friend raiser. Rusty, what do you call it?
Friend raiser.
A friend raiser. Thank you. But we also try to raise money to do the work that we've been very successful in doing. So that work, we'll talk more about it. I'll talk more about what my focus has been, this Sick of Sewage campaign that Joe mentioned. Really, again, what Jack was talking about in how sewage is one of the major culprits in the deterioration of our waterways. It's what was probably the primary culprit that led to the crash of our local waterways in Tampa and Sarasota. And that crash is documented mainly through seagrasses. We saw a dramatic decline. We've been seeing a gradual increase in recovery of our bays, looking again at the seagrass species as the indicator species. Unfortunately, we are seeing declines in this area. There's been recovery, and data from the Water Management District has shown a gradual decline, while we're seeing increases in nitrogen. There's a lot of study going on, a lot of discussion about it over the course of many years, but I think there's a pretty good common sense connection between increases in nitrogen, which come from stormwater runoff and sewage discharges, and decreases in seagrasses. Also, harmful algae blooms tie into all of this. We saw a need, I think it's now 4 years ago, we initiated our first lawsuit 3-4 years ago against the city of St. Petersburg after tropical storms led to millions of gallons of sewage, just raw sewage, being discharged from the city of St. Petersburg's collection system as well as their treatment system. It was the biggest, Pinellas County was the source of the majority of sewage being released into the state of Florida during that summer. During the Scott administration, we saw the an increasing decline in enforcement actions brought by the Department of Environmental Protection. The federal government was doing nothing in Florida really to enforce environmental laws. So again, as I said before, as a organization, we use the tools of the Clean Water Act and other federal statutes to step into the shoes of the enforcement agencies when they don't do their job. So we initiated a Clean Water Act lawsuit against the city of St. Petersburg, and shortly after that, the city of Gulfport, seeking to get them to fix their problem. Unfortunately, with those two cities, it led to more than 2 years of very, very intense litigation. Very time-consuming, very difficult. Thank you to some of the supporters in this room who really were in the trenches with us, and some of our board members. I know that Sandy Rittberger also was a standing witness and was grilled in deposition. Thank you. And ultimately, we prevailed, big time. And during those fights, I looked closer into our backyard, into Sarasota, and realized that Sarasota County, and hopefully you folks have heard about the case that we brought in Sarasota County, had been for a decade dumping over 1 billion gallons of partially treated wastewater into Philippi Creek, and nobody knew about it. Some of the folks in the utility department knew about it, but it was a dark secret. Also, their collection system, like many cities and counties and municipalities in this area, had been in decline. They hadn't been making the adequate investments in their environmental infrastructure. So we also looked at Sarasota and realized that there was intervention that was necessary, because again, the state wasn't doing their job, the feds weren't doing their job. In the case of Sarasota, it was completely different. We had been in the trenches for 2 years with St. Petersburg and Gulfport and been racking up victories in court and really good rulings by judges. And Sarasota took a different approach, realized that they were caught red-handed, they were in the wrong, and it was also at the same time when our harmful algae blooms were wreaking havoc, and there was a change in public sentiment and interest in education, and Sarasota did the right thing. We litigated against them, but we focused our efforts on settling the case. The result was fantastic. Like with St. Petersburg and Gulfport, it led to massive investment in their environmental infrastructure, and also a realization that they need to do a better job of interacting with the public to inform people about the spills that are occurring. So you'll see now, in Facebook posts and in the paper, a lot more information about these waterways. That leads to our next step. We're going to continue doing actions when necessary against municipalities in this region to make them come into compliance with the Clean Water Act. And you'll hear about that soon. We've got another city in Pinellas County that we're looking really hard at. But we're also starting to look at stormwater pollution. Stormwater from industrial sites that's contributing to the harm of our local waterways. And when I say local waterways, it's all connected, as we know. So probably in a week or so, we're going to initiate our first Clean Water Act case against an industrial recycling company that has locations throughout the region. I think we're going to target 5 locations that have basically no stormwater controls from their operations, where they crush cars and other metals, and the rain comes, it comes off-site, goes into creeks, into the stormwater system, into our bays, and they're not complying with the regulations and the requirements of the Clean Water Act to do even basic practices to keep those pollutants on-site and to treat them. So we're branching off in this Sick of Sewage campaign into now going after stormwater industrial sites. The other thing that's relatively new, because we haven't wanted to be an organization just about lawsuits. I mean, there's a need, and we've been able to work collaboratively with other organizations that are represented to do a variety of projects. And Joe, I think, will talk more about the land use cases that we've been engaging in. But also now we're starting to do water quality monitoring. We're starting to.
Yeah, before we get into the water quality monitor, I just want to highlight before we get off the Clean Water Act enforcement that Justin, as an attorney, works on a contingency fee. So none of the monies that we raise go towards his paycheck for carrying out this. He relies totally upon if he's successful, and we partner with other organizations throughout the country taken on these federal suits, which we've been successful with the first 3 suits that we've actually participated in. So I think, when you look at, the question of how do we do this, and then also I just want to have you highlight what has been the result so far, just real quickly, of St. Pete, Gulfport, and Sarasota, so that people have an awareness of it. It's just not about, oh, you did something wrong. It's about getting something to better the environment from those enforcement activities.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And also, I'd like to acknowledge there are 2 other lawyers that I work with and have been working with for the past couple of years that have joined us today from DC. Kaki Schmidt, if you could stand, Kaki, and Mike Goodstein, who are just incredible lawyers. Thank you so much. Thank you. And they're in town because we have a hearing tomorrow. We're almost done in St. Petersburg. It's been over 2 years, 3 years now. It's a blur. What we've gotten out of these cases, and we have yet to get our fees and costs from St. Petersburg after years and years of fighting, but we've got incredible injunctive relief, the substantive relief that we get from these cases, which is first and foremost to make them come into compliance with the Clean Water Act, to stop their sewage. And they won't do it overnight, but it requires them to come up with a plan, which we have our own engineers, which we hire, that we have to pay, to come up with a solution. And also, with these municipalities, they have at the same time entered into settlements or consent orders with the DEP, but they've kind of taken the back seat. Hopefully they'll step up, because really it's their job. We shouldn't have to do this, and I think that maybe they'll be embarrassed that we have to do it and step up their efforts. But really it's infrastructure improvements is the main thing. They have to spend millions and millions of dollars, some of which is, unfortunately, they have to raise rates. Some of it comes through grants or bonds to improve their sewage systems, to make sure that they come into compliance with the Clean Water Act and have a plan so that moving forward, they'll continue to make those investments in their environmental infrastructure so that in the future they won't suffer from these discharges. But also, as a component of that, in each case we make sure that there's some type of environmental benefit project. And we've been successful in getting these defendants to contribute to the estuary programs, which I am a big fan of, and we've worked collaboratively with. The Tampa Bay Estuary is the recipient of essentially fines from the polluters. And hopefully in our stormwater cases, we'll be able to continue that to get them to do environmental benefit projects, and they may be restoration initiatives or other initiatives that are run not by Suncoast Waterkeeper. It's not like a bounty. We don't get paid for this, but there's a significant environmental benefit projects in addition to, these are the main things that we get out of it, the infrastructure improvements, and also public education and outreach, where they have to do a much better job of letting folks know about the sewage spills as they occur. Yeah. Sure, and thanks. So I think maybe we can kind of wait on questions.
Yeah, we'll hold off on the questions for a little bit. We're going to have Andy Mele come up and talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing with the water sampling, and we appreciate your time. We're probably going to be about another 15 minutes here. At this time, the silent auction is closed, and then we'll have the raffle in about 15 minutes here.
And after Andy, we're going to chat a little bit about another initiative that we hope to grow into environmental education.
Let's have a round of applause for Jack Davis. I'm going to talk about a couple of things. One, coming right off of Justin, this is a tough act to follow, but I'm going to make it even tougher because I'm a nut for context. I'm a writer too, and I love to see things in their proper context. Justin and Suncoast Waterkeeper, with the help of those other two attorneys' associations, have literally done more to keep nutrient pollution out of Florida's waters and out of the Gulf of Mexico than the Florida legislature has. And you folks in this room, with your $75 tickets and your other many and numerous donations, have helped make that possible. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We also, we did a cool thing last year, 2019. It's still within the purview of this annual event. We gave Mosaic, the phosphate mining company, its first ever hard stop at the DeSoto County border. And we were part of a coalition of people who mobilized an entire county, DeSoto County, through door-to-door pamphleting, through running around in the crowds along the side of the 4th of July parade, good old school. Talk about the toolbox. These are the things that, I'm not a lawyer, I got outreach skills, okay? So we did other stuff. And we had like 300 people show up at the county commission when they were going to decide on the rezone for turning 25,000 acres of agricultural land into industrial land. And the county commission voted it down, 4-1. And we did that. And so we bought a 4-year halt, a 4-year truce, which gives them time to put in more favorable commissioners. It gives us time to educate the people more, and this is all ongoing. So we've done a lot of action on harmful algae blooms. We have been participating with the other Florida waterkeepers in lobbying, in trying to influence the Harmful Algae Task Force and the Red Tide Task Force, the Blue-Green Algae Task Force that the governor started. And this is ongoing. And we've also been trying to get the Florida Senate to create a better bill. They have Senate Bill 712. It sounds good, but it's not. It has no teeth. It's nothing. It's just talk. It's hot air. And so, we're trying to consider whether to oppose it. It has some good elements in it, or whether to just bite the bullet, let it pass, which it will, and then work with them as they start writing the regulations for it, and try to the regulations is where the rubber meets the road. The act itself, 712, is just hot air. The water sampling program. This was something that we conceived, we've always wanted to do. It's classic waterkeeper stuff. It's so many people were asking us, what's in the water after the harmful algae bloom event? He's right, it's true. It's not just K. brevis, it's a whole host of other things. And so we had a house party at this very generous lady's house in Punta Gorda. Punta Gorda is literally the absolute southernmost limit of our jurisdiction. She's with us today. Cheryl Berlin, please stand and take some applause. That got us enough money to get this program rocking and rolling. So we have a weekly sampling run in both Sarasota and up in Tampa Bay. Okay, I thought you were going to get the hook. I have reflexes where Joe's concerned. He's a Marine, he's a tough guy. So we're doing a weekly sampling run. Cheryl's been with me, and Rebecca's here. Rebecca's doing the Tampa Bay run. Wave. Okay. And this is just looking for Enterococcus. You've all heard of E. coli, but E. coli only